This next image is another beer in a glass with some foam, a little bit different, slightly different camera angle, different variations, couple little pieces we're gonna do differently this time, but sort of the same process. We're gonna go from capture to bridge to Photoshop. Let's jump in and bang this thing out. First part of the process that I always do, of course, is running through my capture exposures, taking this down to 0.2 so I don't have these weird blurred out pixels that I don't want. I don't know why capture does things that way, but I like to put it down to 0.2. I'm gonna give myself a little bit more latitude to work with. I'm also gonna crop this thing down because I don't want a lot of excess canvas and distractions. Same story as before. Terms of rotation, I think we're pretty much there. Doesn't look tilted to me at all. I can do a quick check of the horizontal axis. That's fine. So looks like we had a little hot highlight in the background. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull that down a little bit. I'm gonna need to use a minor bit of exposure. Still gonna be a little bright. That's okay. This exposure, if we look at our notes, is only for the body. And even then, this is number 276, and my note says lower half with less bubbles. That's referring to fewer bubbles down in this lower half. So with that done, and with my sliders where I want them, I'm gonna keep noise reduction at its default, a little bit smoother. So I'm gonna take those and just gonna sync them up real quick and easy. Looks like the exposure has changed on this one. And if we look at our notes, once again, 277 is for the body. Halfway up, we're gonna be blending those two frames together. I'll show you a really simple way to do that we can customize if we need to. 294 is for the head. So we had another variation before, but we're just gonna be using this one. I like the shape of it. I think it allows for the most fun and creativity in terms of creating a composite. So I did lower the exposure slightly on that first one. So I'm gonna bring this one back up. We're combining the top half of the middle and the lower half of the left. And so I want those to kind of feel the same. You can see that my blacks aren't really black, and that's intentional. I'm gonna put a curve on it that'll change the shape of my blacks. This one, I think I'm just gonna bring it pretty much the same level this other one is. I'm only looking at my exposure on the foam for this. You can see that we've got a little bit of a highlight in the back area here that's running kind of hot. Not sure if I'm gonna fix that in this pass, but just want to get this foam exposure where I want. So with that done, I know that my folders are set up the way I want them to. I'm just gonna hit Command D and flip over to Bridge. Got my process files. Gonna go to Tools, load into layers. Sometimes you get that, just hit yes. There's no Q, it's lying. Cool. So referencing the notes, we've got lower half, upper half, and a head. If I want, I can just kind of group these up, call them what they need to be called so I can maintain my file names just in case I would need to reference this for any reason. This is my head, my lower, and my upper half, but we'll just call it upper. I know what it means. So I can turn this off for right now. I'm just gonna do a really fast blend on these two layers. This is my upper, this is my lower. So I'm gonna add a layer mask. Gonna go to my grad tool if it'll let me change. It's giving me grief. Onto the grad tool. And I'm just gonna use this first one here, which if I hit D goes to default. and loads that grad up. So I think for this one, it's going to be blocking out the bottom, putting that on, drawing a line up there, and we're halfway done. So this is my call in terms of how many bubbles I want to get down below. See what I'm doing there? Except I am on a circular grad. Let's go to linear. So just like that, I've got just a really simple grad that's blending these two frames together. I did skip one step, and that is I'm going to put this one on difference. I'm going to turn off my layer or my layer mask and just make sure that these are aligned since I am blending them together. And it definitely looks like they're aligned. So with that done, yep, see, all aligned. I can go back to this, set it back to normal, and I've got my relatively clean lower half mixed with the upper half. But you know, I think I'm still not quite there with what's happening. I feel like there's still too many bubbles right in this area. So I'm just gonna go up to this mask. You know, if you wanna maintain the integrity of the grad, you can just put a mask on this one. And I'm just gonna use a low flow brush and paint away a few of these bubbles. I don't think they need to be there. They're not helping out, especially over here. So we'll just clean this area up a little bit. They're fine here. I think it's nice to have them there. This is fine too. Yeah, that's cool. You know, it's your call on this one. That's the mask I just made. It's imperfect like it should be. So this next little bit is we're gonna align to the one that we just used to align, just to make sure things are all in place. You can see this one's off by a pixel or two. So I'm just gonna tap that into place. All I'm worried about is this area up here. Back to normal. I'm gonna go to a brush and I'm gonna do what's called a reverse mask on this one. Rather than hiding the layer and painting it in, I'm going to show the layer and paint it out, and you'll see why in just a sec. So if I go like this, and I'm not really worried about anything right now other than this overflowing head of foam. And I'm not going to be really precise with my mask because that takes time, and I don't have a whole lot of time in this workflow to be creating 45-minute masks. My whole goal with these images is just to get a great set of comps thrown together and move on to the next stage after. A lot of times with jobs like this, clients don't have budgets and they just need quick results. Sometimes you'll have web res and, you know, you're retouching a 10,000 pixel image and they only need 2,000 of those pixels or less, 800. And all your work just gets thrown away. So with this one, I just want to do kind of a sloppy mask because you'll never be able to see it. And so you'll see in a second how we'll clean this thing up, even though we can't tell what we're doing. Okay, almost done. And I'm not using any screen rotation. I've done a lot of masking work, and I could be doing this all over the place, but I'm comfortable with a brush. So I'm not going to worry about this line. It's going to be masked out here in a second. Just going to take away this interior shape. I can pop over to here just to get a faster review of where I am. You can see I did a hard edge into a feathered edge. That was very intentional. Okay, that's my mask. Looks like there's a little knob there. Like I said, it's a reverse mask. I think that's what I called it. There's really no name for it. It's just what it is. So with that, invert head, right? So I painted it out just because that's how I wanted to do it. It's like you're painting away what's there and then just reversing your mask, and you get that right on top. So you can see why I feathered just here. I might even think about, nope, I can't feather there. So I'm gonna blend this shadow so it's not so bulky right there. That's the beauty of having a camera locked down and aligning your layers to get this stuff started. So I've got my path made, pasted in. I'm going to use that, as I did before, to make a master selection and master mask. Put some color back there just so I can see it like it's meant to be. For this, I'm not even going to use a brush. I'm going to make a curve, do something like that, hurt myself on the highlights, and I'm gonna take a wand tool to get my initial selection. It's just a quick and easy way. Brush would probably be the same way, but I'm gonna throw down a bunch of different techniques as I work through this stuff. I have like 100 different ways of doing everything because that's just the way I work. I like to have options available to me so I don't get bored doing the same thing over and over again. It's just what you do when you do a lot of retouching. So we'll get rid of that, and we'll get rid of that. Oh my gosh, look at that. And I'm gonna go back into my mask, and I've selected the outside of it. So now I wanna select, no, I wanna keep that selection. I'm gonna go to my brush and paint black. Bam, not worried about this right now. Got kind of some weird edges, and that's okay. Deselect, it's a little messy, totally fine. No one will ever know. I can always blur the edge just a hair if I need to, but for the most part, no worries. I'll clean that up, and I'm gonna deactivate my mask, turn on my preview using the backslash, and just kind of make sure that's not too chunky. That's totally fine right there. Like I said, I'm just working down and dirty. Yeah, you know, I'm a retoucher, so things do need to be perfect, but today we're just gonna make them a little less perfect. So, mask is back on, clean. I'm gonna move into a little bit of cleanup and color. This one doesn't need a lot of cleanup. I think I'm just gonna spend 5 minutes with it. I'm not gonna rebuild this whole side, although I'd like to. I'm gonna try to make most of it go away in color. So we're just going to see what happens if we don't frequency separate, and instead we run the old healing brush on the whole thing, because I'm looking for efficiency today. And that looks pretty cool. Like I said, I'm going through a few different techniques. Most of the time I love using frequency separation, but today we'll use a variety of tools. Okay, you can see it's just not quite perfect. That's okay. I wonder what that line is. So in my current workflow, every time I do this, where I have an image and I tell myself, I'm just going to do this in a single cleaning layer and not run frequency separation. I always regret it, because now I'm thinking I really should have run frequency separation here. But this will kind of work. You can see there's a bunch of artifacts that happen. And maybe this is just a good way to teach you why the traditional ways aren't always the best ways, because you run into all these issues with frequency, or with healing. A lot of blurry faded edges and stuff that aren't very appealing and take a lot of additional cleanup to fix. And this kind of grad that's on the side here, if you take the techniques I showed you before and dig into them, then you can fix this side with some frequency sep to get rid of this big mama reflection here. Yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but just to show you how the old techniques work. So as you can see, still a long ways to go. If it were separated, it'd be much faster. I'm just going to jump into color and get these blacks looking the way that I want them to be. And to do that, I'm going to make my CC group. I like to keep it organized. I'm going to create before I separate out all this stuff, I'm just going to do a single curve and see if I can make it all happen right there. Because I might just need something a little bit separate on top. There's that lovely saturation shift that happens on a normal blend mode curve. You can see that my foam on top has just turned into a lot of bright yellow that I don't want. But the rest of the beer is looking really nice. You can see how, my intention of having it kind of grayed out pays off, because now I have latitude to shape it the way that I want. I can really dial it in once I see all of the pieces together, which when I have separate composites, I can't see all the pieces together. So with that looking pretty spanky, I think what I need to do is duplicate that and invert it. And then I'm going to come down here and paint off of this guy. Yep, just want to fill it up, go like that. Now this is only affecting all this stuff down below, and I can dupe that up there, invert it, and because I like that curve, maybe not, I know what it's doing. I'm gonna brighten this head up just a touch and give it a little bit more pop, and then I'm gonna just set it to lum so I'm not dealing with all that yellow saturation. Not a fan of this up here, but it's a lot of reconstruction work. I'll probably be borrowing this section over here if I was going to spend the time on reconstruction. So just as an idea, if you're interested, you can do one of these guys and bring it over, just kind of put it in place like that. Hit OK. Then invert your mask, take a brush, go to super low flow, and just kind of paint a little bit in there if it's really bothering you. And if it's looking a little bit dark, of course, all you have to do is throw a curve on it, clip it, and then you can brighten it up just a touch. Voila. All right, I think that's where I want this to be for right now. I could do some isolation of the logo. Looks like I could clean up a little bit more in there, so you should do that. See if you can get the C looking better. And we're gonna go ahead and get that saved and go back into Capture and start working on the next one.